Hi, this is Dr. Robert Panetta, Director of Pharmaceutical Solutions with BlockRx. Welcome to our Ask the Expert series, where pharma supply chain experts share their views on the most pressing challenges facing the industry, how blockchain can help, and the impact a viable blockchain solution might have on their business, as well as patient outcomes.
George Serafin. I'm the healthcare and life sciences industry leader for Grant Thornton. Have over 30 years of experience across that entire value chain, molecule to patient. Counterfeiting and diversion continue to be a very pressing problem on a global scale. Secondly, the complexity of the supply chain continues to increase, putting more pressure on manufacturers as well as the entire ecosystem to be able to deliver products to patients. Third is the fact that we see a lot of disruption, obviously just even more recently with the hurricanes and other challenges. There is business continuity, and there are real shortages that happen from time to time with products, and I think that's top of mind for several regulators as well as for the industry as a whole. Lastly, I'd say that certainly patient safety is always paramount to everything that the entire ecosystem. So certainly having safe and efficacious products getting to clients when they need them is incredibly important. So building on that, also the cold chain activities, again, given the complexities that I was mentioning earlier, cold chain becomes even more pertinent. Blockchain is a very promising technology. What I really am very interested about blockchain is several things. One, certainly the closed ledger system and having that ecosystem to have trusted exchanges between parties, I think is very promising and certainly helps from a supply chain integrity perspective. Having the audit trail associated with it certainly helps satisfy some of the specific regulatory requirements that all regulators are looking for from a supply chain integrity standpoint. I think the ease of use, as you see between the contracts, also, which can be applied across that entire value chain, whether in the clinical trial aspects, whether in the supply chain, or whether in the commercial healthcare space. I think it holds great promise in terms of cutting out the middlemen and being able to have a much more automated approach in terms of vetting and that entire contract management process. And then there's other opportunities to take blockchain even further. I mentioned a bit earlier about patient safety. So the ability to actually collect information from a safety perspective, as well as I mentioned about cold chain and thinking about that you can have alerts that are coming up when a particular product has had the environment compromised and having that information being readily apparent. And so I think it shows a lot of promise given from where and the shift in terms of where on-premise and enterprise solutions are today and where this technology can take everything tomorrow. Well, I think it can have a tremendous impact in the years to come. Just like any nascent technology, it takes time. So I certainly want to preface that by saying it's not something that tomorrow you're going to see the entire industry turn over and start being able to do things. And certainly the pharmaceutical industry as a whole typically moves slower than other industry sectors, like say fintech, which is starting to use blockchain in different areas. But certain solutions already are available, especially in the supply chain integrity space. I think that you'll see over the next several years, blockchain as a technology kind of emerging in a couple of areas. As I mentioned, on the supply chain integrity side, I think it offers great promise and the ability to now have that entire ecosystem now covered with respect to that technology and all of the trading partners up and downward across the supply chain. I think it has applicability in the R&D space around clinical trials, and I also see it having impact just in the contracts in general in the commercial space between manufacturers and that broader ecosystem, and also in the healthcare space as well. So lots of opportunities. I also think that it takes time for regulators to come up to speed. So certainly many of the areas that I spoke about are highly regulated, not only by FDA, but by international regulatory partners as well. And so there's also a tendency to certainly wait for some type of nod, unofficial, of course, from regulators where they become more comfortable with the technologies that are being leveraged. But the spade and piece of disruption in industry, I think regulators, especially FDA, are really trying to get out of the way of that, really trying to leverage the current regulatory frameworks that are available to them and allowing companies to take advantage of these new technologies because the alignment is there that it's going to help in the long run, it's going to help patients and consumers. In several ways. And I'll just kind of go from one end to the spectrum to the other. So certainly on the clinical trial side, the ability to go over and have these contracts between the patients themselves and the clinicians and the clinical investigators, I think in the manufacturers as part of the clinical trial protocol. I think the capturing of safety data as part of these clinical trials is also something that again would be of great interest and also promise. On the manufacturing side, I think again getting into the supply chain integrity, having a higher level of confidence that the products that are being delivered are safe and efficacious and actually are the correct identity of the products that are being sold to and being provided to patients. And on the commercial side as well, I think that a more efficient healthcare ecosystem helps reducing the complexity, helps reduce the burden placed on those healthcare systems, whether that be in the U.S. or internationally, as well as the complexity of the supply chains to make sure that there's no disruptions with respect to drug shortages and eliminating those, as well as the ability to get products when they're promised and potentially even reduce the cost in the long run.
Thanks for listening to our Ask the Expert series. The information and views contained in this recording are not necessarily those of BlockRx, nor of the companies at which our experts are currently employed. This has been a production of BlockRx.